Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. This is our fall meeting of the NAFSA Interest Group for Peace, Justice, and Citizen Diplomacy. And we have titled it Peace Building Through Youth Development. Really pleased to have with us two wonderful discussion leaders. Barbara McDade, as you may have seen from the message we sent this morning from Strand Millis University College, was unable to join us due to some family needs, but she suggested another person who has graciously agreed to fill in for her, and we've enjoyed getting to know already Joe McKeown, who is the CEO of Youthlink, an organization in Ireland. And we also have with us one of our original presenters, Chibuzor Agomuoh, who is an author, and he is the founder of the Sunrise Youth Intervention Organization. So some wonderful global perspectives today to get us thinking about this topic, which also is one of our ways of celebrating the UN International Day of Peace. So without further ado, and we've got the chat open, so you can feel free to place questions in there. I think what we'll do is have Chibuzor go first, and then Joe, and then we'll take questions and answers at the end, unless Chibuzor and Joe, you have any other ideas. So we'll just turn it over to you now, Chibuzor, and off we go.
Thank you so much, Opal. And thank you so much, Luna, for agreeing to support me with this presentation. I'm currently in Namibia. My schedule is really hectic, but I said, no, it's very important that I feature in this presentation when I saw the email, especially considering how supportive the Global Youth Advancement Network has been to my organization in the last 1 year. So yeah, today I'm going to be talking about, just in a few minutes, the work I have done in peace building with the support of the Global Youth Advancement Network. And one of the major reasons that drove me into peace building, in addition to the work I do in youth development. So I would like the next slide. Yeah, so in January 2024, the Global Youth Advancement Network at Michigan State University partnered with my organization, the Sunrise Youth Intervention Organization in Nigeria, to implement a project tagged Soft Skills Development for Conflict Management and Career Advancement. And the reason why we chose this project was that from my needs assessment, I realized that a huge percentage of young persons in the workplace struggle with managing conflicts, either conflict with their supervisors, conflict with co-workers. And we understand that conflict impacts productivity, especially for developing countries. And so we saw a need to provide essential skills in conflict management for young persons in the workforce to enable them sustain their careers and move their careers forward. So next slide. Yeah, so this project was supported by the Reciprocal Exchange Grant. It was $3,000, yeah, very small grant, by the US government through the Mandela Washington Fellowship for Young African Leaders implemented by IREX. And so Luna Lu, the Senior Innovation Officer at Global Youth Advancement Network, and I, we collaborated on this project in Nigeria in early January. So in the next slide, we'll see some of the things we were able to accomplish from that project. Next slide, yeah. So this is the flyer. We had the support of some incredible speakers from Morocco, Bangladesh, back home in Nigeria, from Ghana, and we had the support of the local youth network called YALI. YALI is an acronym for Young African Leaders Initiative. And then we also had a certified therapist speak on trauma-informed leadership, which we felt was very, very key for our project. Yeah, so next slide. All right, so it was a very impactful program. The engagement was incredible. And our N-line survey showed that about 77%, because the number of registered participants were about 250. We had, it was a hybrid project. We had in-person participants, and we also had participants join us online from around Nigeria and from other African countries. And from our survey, we found out that about 77% of participants indicated that the project had meaningful impact in the way they engaged with their colleagues and with their clients and customers, and it improved their capacity to manage work significantly. Yeah, so we go to the next slide. Yeah, so here it says the project benefited over 215 person and online participants in Nigeria and other countries. Topics for the workshop included effective communication, adaptability, empathy, resilience, trauma-informed leadership. Our online survey showed that over 77% of participants were able to improve their workplace engagement. So next slide. And, we had finished the project in late January, and we applied for a follow-up grant, which is called the American Impact Award. We never knew that the project Luna and I implemented was going to be considered a very important project by the US government. And so we applied, I supported Luna to apply for the American Impact Award, and luckily, we won again, and we were given a $3,000 grant, which allowed Luna, my US collaborator, to share about the impact of the work we did together with professionals in the US community. And I was also able to support her by shooting a documentary back in Nigeria. Next slide. Yeah. Also, like I mentioned here, Luna was able to present about the project in Michigan and New Orleans, and I was able to present in Gainesville, Florida, and recorded a documentary in Nigeria from participants of the program in January. And so the professionals at Gainesville, the River Phoenix Center, were very, very inspired by the work we did earlier in January. So next slide. And yes, so we decided to build upon the work we did. And I thought about, from the feedback we got from participants, we realized that this project is essential for small business owners and nonprofits. And so in August 2024, my organization implemented a hybrid project in Angola and Nigeria. We had De Vivos, which is an organization in Angola, Dahel Techies, which is a tech nonprofit in Nigeria that supported us with the hybrid component of the project. And we also had the Global Youth Advancement Network. They all served as our partners for that project. 155 participants in both countries attended, both in person and online. The project was titled Conflict Management for Small Businesses and Nonprofits Impacted by Internal Conflict. Next slide. Yeah, so we also had other professionals support us by speaking. And the interesting thing about this project was it was a 4-week project, but it held Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 5.5 hours each day. It was very, very engaging. And at first, I was thinking that maybe after the first week, most participants may drop out, but I was really surprised. The audience retention was incredible. About 92% of participants who joined at the beginning stayed with us till the very end of the project. And the engagement was incredible. So here is a picture from participants in Angola. So we check the next slide. Yeah, so here is a picture of participants from participants in Nigeria at the American Corner in Calabar. Next slide. Yeah, these are some of the pictures as they turned up day after day. And we also had people who joined online, and it was a very, very wonderful engagement with the participants. In fact, we still have a WhatsApp group of about 490 participants who registered because of the program. But of course, not all of them were able to attend. From our list, we had 155 who attended on a regular basis. So yeah, we'll check the next slide. Yeah. So the project explored several themes around effective conflict resolution, including the following: restorative justice, solution-focused conflict coaching, dialogue for difficult subjects. And we understand that conflict impacts productivity, and that small businesses and volunteer-driven nonprofits remain the lifeblood of developing economies. In our baseline survey of the project in August, 97% of respondents indicated that the project had significantly improved their conflict management skills. And that was very heartwarming. It made us realize that the over 60 hours we invested in that project didn't go to waste. Next slide, please. Yeah, so currently, this September, my organization is partnering with a youth organization in Namibia known as Vibera. And we're hosting a 5-day workshop in Namibia titled Conflict Management for Enhancing Team Productivity in Small Businesses. We have about 50 in-person registered participants in a town called Ogwendiva, and we have about 40 participants join us from Walvis Bay and Windhoek. And over 70% of participants identify as women. Next slide, please. So the project is currently ongoing. These are the pictures of some of the participants of the workshop we did yesterday. Our goal is to equip entrepreneurs with effective conflict management skills to resolve conflict and enhance productivity. Now we'll go to the final slide. So we're glad that our research, because in all the projects we do, we make sure we do our baseline and our endline survey. And we're glad that our research from these 4 projects have contributed a chapter to a book on organizational conflict management written by Professor Yashuant Pathak of University of South Florida. The book will be released in 2 volumes later this year. From these trainings done in 3 African countries, Nigeria, Angola, and Namibia, we have seen that there is a strong need to equip entrepreneurs and leaders of volunteer-driven nonprofits with conflict management skills, particularly in developing economies. And we are open to working with institutions and individuals interested in expanding and learning about peace-building efforts in Africa. So thank you so much for listening to my short presentation, and I hope you were able to take something from it. If you have any questions, of course, I'm more than willing to share. You can contact me via my email. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chibuzor. Would you like to take questions now, or would you like to wait until the end? What do you think?
I would love to wait till the end. Yeah.
Okay, sounds great. Then Joe, if you're ready.
I was hoping he was going to take questions. I could have breathed for a while. Thank you, Chibuzor.
Thank
I
you.
think we're going to play a video first, aren't we?
We do. Let's see. There we go.
This is Bob. Bob lives in a beehive. Bob and the rest of the bees benefit from the constant pursuit of the common good. A society in which everyone flourishes and lives up to their full potential. Without it, Bob's hive wouldn't make as much honey and flowers wouldn't get pollinated. Poor flowers. All bees are different, so it's important their society is inclusive. It's important to have a shared future where all bees can live, develop, thrive, flourish, succeed and pollinate together. There are 4 main strands of the common good. Human dignity. A society in which every bee is worthy of respect and equal treatment, especially the most vulnerable, such as the sick, homeless, unemployed, or those impacted by fly swats. Human interconnectedness. A society in which Bob is dependent on others for his own well-being. He'll benefit from the well-being of the whole hive, not just his own group. Solidarity. It's important Bob recognises that his life, is deeply intertwined with all areas of society in his hive, even areas of a different gender, culture, race, religion or class. Civic participation. Bob is required to act in a way that helps others in society. It starts in his hive, but could extend to other bees from other hives. So try not to treat diversity as a threat. Try not to segregate society, whatever your race or religion. Try to keep our society together for the good of everyone, the common good, and for Bob.
I'm going to give you a sheet of paper, and on it I want you to design like a newspaper, like a front page of a newspaper with the news headlines of the kind of society that you would like to be living in. Not that it might be, but that you want it to be. So I want you to...
What are some of the things that young people find really challenging?
So draw suicide in the middle, and then all things around it, so mental health, universal credit, peace walls been taken down as well.
And you could say paid for your skills, not based on your gender. A school based on your needs rather than, yeah? Perfect. Okay, so tell us, what is your newspaper called?
So this is called People's Voice.
Very good. Brilliant.
Some of our headlines that we're really interested in is polar bears are back.
Global warming, and that we're being more responsible for ourselves and ourselves on the planet. Very good.
So trafficking gone, so people finally taking action on human trafficking, and now it has been stopped.
More education on how to make the world more inclusive for people with disabilities. The most important thing for us is more funding has been given the NHS. They're struggling at the moment, so give them that funding helps a lot of these things, and that's how it all links in together.
What are the different themes in the post? What are the important maybe principles? And I want you to write one theme on a post-it note.
I think it's really inspiring when we get to hear your vision for the future, and we all have a responsibility to contribute to that. We can't expect everyone else to create this world for us. We have responsibility for our own civic participation and making the change that we want to see.
I think the best way for us to get young people involved in like the community and stuff is to have more cross-community relation groups so that they're understanding different race, religions, backgrounds.
And maybe also do workshops for them and let them experience themselves, so give them opportunities to volunteer.
In 20 years' time, I want to live in a society where religion doesn't matter and everyone can be friends and know that feel safe in both sides of the community.
What people need to do is be more active with, different cross communities.
In 20 years in the future, in terms of especially locally, I want to live in a society where things like the peace walls in Belfast are all torn down. I know in my area where I'm from, in Portadown, we have 7 peace walls, and I'd like to see all of them taken down. Also, I'd like to see more mental health services locally become available. So in terms of young people who are struggling with their mental health and anxiety and stress and stuff.
We can support young people in a shared future by giving them a voice and letting them take some leadership, because if the opportunities aren't there, then they won't be able to do it and they won't be able to learn either. So I think giving them the opportunity and the leadership and the voice would be the most important part for our future to happen.
So to build a society based on the common good, I think for a start we need to get the politicians back into Stormont so we can come to them with any concerns that we have and changes we want to make in our community, so whether that be through our councillors or our MLAs.
Thank you, Letitia. I thought I'd play a video clip first because it would mean I would have to speak less. But welcome, or sorry, I shouldn't say welcome, say thank you for being here, for offering me the chance to come along and speak. I'm a replacement for Barbara McDade, who is a really expert speaker and she's a doctor. So today I'm sorry you got me, and my accent is very Northern Irish, so I should have subtitles as well. I wanted to start off the presentation saying the last time I was in Michigan, I was talking about peace and conflict in Detroit, and a journalist misunderstood what I was saying. I was talking about growing up in a divided society, and I was throwing stones at the police and army, and my friend who was from the other side of the community was speaking, and the next day in the newspaper, the Detroit Times, it said, former terrorist, now peacemaker, Joe McKeown. So last time I was called a terrorist was in Detroit, Michigan. And it's a little memory I have. It's interesting why we've been drawn here today on International Day of Peace. And we're looking at empowerment, youth development, and the power of education. So it was really useful to hear Chibuzor's presentation about conflict management and the impact that has on young people in the workforce and employability. And that's the power of education, the power of training. Youthlink as an organization, we were set up 30 years ago at the height of the conflict in Ireland, in the north part of Ireland, sometimes called Northern Ireland. But even how you define the place that I live can say what your political persuasions are, your religious persuasions are. And if Barbara was here today, she would be happy to say that Youthlink is from UK. But today I will say Youthlink is from Ireland. And she can do the presentation the next time. Youthlink was set up because thousands of people were being killed in Ireland. Hundreds of thousands were being injured in bombings and shootings and paramilitary attacks. Institutions and government were not coming together. Educational bodies were separated. Children were educated separately. The churches got together and said, look, we need to do something, and they established Youthlink as an organization. The British government at the time said, if you work together, we will fund you to do educational projects. And in 1991, Youthlink was established, but it was established by men and women who cared about peace building, men and women like the people on this call today. They had coffees before the organization was set up, and they dreamed big dreams. And thank God today that they're still here. For me, as a young person growing up in Belfast, I was impacted significantly by the conflict. I was born in an area of socioeconomical deprivation. I was growing up in poverty to teenage parents. My grandfather was shot dead outside his corner shop by the British Army as he went to open his shop. My friend's father was killed in front of him outside his family home. Bombings and shootings and harassment by police and army were normal everydays for me. I knew I lived in a broken society. I was full of hatred for most of my life, like until I reached my development programs, made an intervention. I actually met a nun in a pub. Who meets a nun in a pub? And she offered me, she had a youth project, and she offered me the chance to be a youth leader. And I was nervous, but said yes. I don't know how or why I said yes. But the program that she was involved in was a peace program. And Youthlink, the organization that I now work for, was helping young people to explore, through educational programs, the baggage of the past, to explore concepts like forgiveness, concepts like reconciliation, peace. What does it look like to handle the conflict, the emotional turmoil, the inner conflict that impacts wider relationships? Youthlink helped me to go on a journey of reconciliation, to forgive the British soldier that shot my grandfather, to get rid of some of the sectarian hatred that I had. And it done that by exposing me to other people, to meet young people from the other side. Like the guy, Stephen, who was in Detroit with me, and we were sharing our stories of growing up in Belfast. But to share your story with the other side meant that you had to listen to the other side, listen to their pains, how they've lost loved ones, or the hurts that they have, and to learn as well that poverty impacts them and discrimination, sectarianism. But the youth work programs were unique in a sense that Northern Ireland is deeply divided. In Belfast alone, we have 26 miles of peace walls that go through communities. And some of these walls are like Israel-Palestine. They're 50-foot high. Some of the walls are motorways, railway tracks that are particularly dividing Catholics and Protestants from each other. People identify as, you know, British or Irish. So Youthlink wants to do something about this, and throughout its formation, it had two purposes. The vision of Youthlink is churches together, empowering and equipping young people and leaders to build a more peaceful, just and flourishing world, or a more peaceful and just world in which young people can flourish. And how we do that is through educational programs. We give young people qualifications that give them a step up in life into employment and university. For me, the first qualification I got was with Youthlink that led to me going on to doing a degree in youth work. It led to me going on and doing a couple of masters, and it led to me being a lecturer and now a CEO of a peace building organization. And it was from them small educational programs that make a difference. In the Irish language, there's a saying, Mullen oiga agus chucky sé, which means praise the youth and they will flourish, they will grow. And that's what we want to do at Youthlink. We believe as a peace building organization in the common good. If, like in Africa, the concept of Ubuntu, you know, a village raises a child, that's what we're trying to do now in Northern Ireland, the north of Ireland. We're trying to let people to say it's not two communities, it's not cross-community work, it's one community like a beehive. And I think for us today, especially listening to the connections that we have between America, with Africa, with Europe, we're all interconnected in this. We all have a role to play. In Ireland, we have been blessed by the American intervention in our peace process. We wouldn't have a peace process if it wasn't for that outside voice looking in and helping us through dialogue. But we also have to look at it critically and think about Irish Americans helped to raise money that bought explosives and bought guns. We also had weapons that came in for another section of the Protestant section of the community from South Africa. So conflict is global, it's intertwined, it involves business, but ultimately it involves people. And we know the pain that conflicts cost. Like at this moment in time, we just need to look at the world and see how much damage has been done. And it's why we do need leaders like Chibuzor and in Africa, organizations like Youthlink, and even like, I think what you are doing, and the first time I've heard of this organization, Opal, was today. And we need to spread the good news of peace building movements like this that are about youth development. So for us in Youthlink today, I just wanted to share a wee bit of the story and to say, my story, I'm now 45, but a small qualification, a small development program changes lives. And I've seen all the young people that go through our programs, thousands a year go through our programs, and the ripple effect that they're having in their communities, their families. They're going on to university, they're going on to be teachers and lecturers and educators and parents. And that's the power of youth development programs. And it starts by one wee small moment, one small relationship and small encouragement. And I just encourage you all today to keep doing this and never to kind of underestimate the power of establishing an initiative like Luna and Chibuzor's initiative. May have been $3,000, but you just see how far that $3,000 went. And that's just a small glimpse of Youthlink. I think I've spoken for, I'm using the 15-minute time frame. And maybe I'll just say the last thing. Training and education is one part of our work. The second aspect of our work is contact, where we bring people together. Youthlink is about trying to overcome the barriers, to break down the divisions. In Northern Ireland, 92% of our education system is segregated. 88% of our housing estates and housing developments are segregated. We're still having military attacks. We're still having police officers being shot. We're still having bomb scares and explosions going off. We're still a very deeply divided society. We get a lot of interest because we're white. A lot of people take interest in Northern Ireland and our conflict. There's lessons to be learned, but we're also a society that's learning about, we're afraid of difference. If you looked at the news in Northern Ireland over the last month, there's been significant racist attacks. And racism and sectarianism are brothers and sisters. So our education programs are also about tackling racism, xenophobia, hatred of any form. And we do that by bringing young people together. There's research out there that shows if you speak more than one language, you're less likely to be sectarian, racist, or homophobic. If you've got someone on your mobile phone that's of a different race, religion, skin color, you're less likely to be sectarian, racist, or homophobic. And so we believe it's about exposing young people to difference. And that's a key aspect of our programs. It's about contact and education. And we also believe in that progression. So we have a degree program as well. It's sadly just finishing because of numbers dwindling and the cost of running a university that many of you will know. But we believe in creating that educational pathway for us level 1 right up to master's level, which is level 7. And that's as an organization what we try to do. So our vision is ultimately about pursuing the common good by building a peaceful, just, and flourishing society. That's me stop now, I think.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you both, Chibuzor and Joe. That was really, really so powerful, and you've given us so much to think about. I have a few questions, but I want to open it up and be sure that our attendees have a chance to ask their questions or just make comments. All right, well, I'll get us started then. And I was saying to Joe before we began that I lived in Ireland for 3 years, but I was based in Limerick, but I spent a lot of time in Northern Ireland looking after students who were there to study abroad, University of Belfast and the University of Ulster, and then later Stranmillis University College, which is focused on teacher education, but a fascinating society. And one other connection I wanted to mention to what you said, Joe, is we here at MSU have developed, it's situated within our College of Arts and Letters, but we have an Ubuntu Institute of Thought and Practice. So really a vibrant, growing institute. And Alexandra is not with us now, I don't think, but she, Alexandra Jarvis, is a member of our team here, and she'll be attending in Zimbabwe, actually, Chibuzor, a special institute of the Institute very soon. So anyway, it was just nice to see those connections and to recall some of those things. So I guess maybe I'll start with a question for you, Chibuzor, and that is, when you think about all of these many endeavors that you're involved in, what do you find are really what are the key themes, the things that you need to impart or instill in the youth that you're working with, or the people who are going to be working with youth? What are kind of the core ideas that help youth be more interested in peace than they are in the other many concerns of life?
Yeah, so thank you, Opal. The question you just asked reminds me of a question someone raised during our session yesterday. In the course of doing this training throughout this year, one of the major elements that we're echoing is the need for dialogue, the need for understanding different perspectives. And like Joe mentioned, we live in a society where there is difference. And many times when people don't understand the difference the difference amongst us, it causes division, it causes rift, and the unwillingness to listen and understand and engage with the other person, to understand the other person's perspective, now further escalates the conflict. And so one of the major things I try to tell young people is the willingness to sit down and employ compassionate listening, trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes, trying at least for a moment, to let go of your perspective and try to understand the other person's perspective. Doesn't mean you have to agree with them 100%, but it will help you know how to engage with them properly by understanding them. And so having all these 4 projects, I've gotten to have moments where certain persons have opened deeply about conflict situations they've experienced in the workplace, and their unwillingness to listen because they feel offended. But as we engage and go through the project and they get to understand the importance of employing compassionate listening and getting to understand the other person's perspective, their viewpoint of conflict changes drastically. So some of the soft skills we teach young people is effective communication, adaptability. We talk to them about empathy. We talk to them about resilience, higher order thinking, collaboration, because these soft skills are very, very important to help them engage properly with other people. And even though we have other things we talk about, like restorative justice, solution-focused conflict coaching, and all of those things, but at the base of it, these soft skills are very, very key when it comes to conversations around conflict and peace building. And so I try to echo that over and over again. You know, the importance of being inclusive, choosing to understand other people's perspective, choosing to see things from their lens, choosing to understand them better, and choosing to employ compassionate listening. I think that is the very base, the very foundation of peace building. Without that, every other thing we build, we're trying to build on is an absolute waste. Yeah.
Would you like to add to that, Joe?
Will you ask the question again, Opal?
Yeah, I'm just wondering what you feel like are the core. Chibuzor talked a lot about the programs that he has for youth, and just kind of what the core ideas are that you need to impart or instill in youth when you want them really to focus seriously on peace.
I think what Chibuzor's saying as well. Chibuzor, sorry if I'm not saying your name right, because I have a really broad Belfast accent. But it's the soft skills. It's the from growing in confidence, belief in self. It's almost, I find, with young people, you're helping them to know that they're valued, they have worth. So for some of them, you're kind of deconstructing all the negative stories they've heard about themselves in the past, and it's a building up of how they communicate with each other, how they share their stories and talk in groups, how they start to identify what they're good at, because maybe they have never been told they're good at something. And even I think the education system is sometimes at fault, because Paulo Freire talks about educational banking, where kids go to school and it's like, you have to learn this, you have to write that in your exam paper, and then the information is in one ear, out the other. Where through youth development programs, I think they get education for the first time. They learn whatever we're teaching them. And I think they realize, when we talk about peace and conflict, they realize they have a role to play. They've never been asked before, like, as a young person, what is your part to play in this? And I'm always keen to reinforce that young people aren't the future. They're the present. They're the right now, and they've lots to say. But it's basic. And even back to that Irish phrase I said, Mullinaga agus Chucky Shay, praise the youth. Like, and Chibuzor will know, you encourage someone and they'll want more of it. They'll come back for more encouragement. They'll come back for more skill developments. They'll become amazing leaders. And at the heart of it, but we'll not tell everybody, it's really basic. It's fundamentally relational. But when you do it consistently and intentionally, you see leaders being born. And I echo what Chibuzor's saying as well.
We have a couple of questions in the chat, actually. I don't know if you've had a chance to see them. The UN Sustainable Development Goals, number 16, asks us to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. So I wonder if any of you could touch upon how you see yourselves and your projects in connection to this specific goal in terms of what has already been done or perhaps aspiration for the future.
Well, I reacted when I seen this because if people followed our politics, you know, we haven't had a government for 7 years in Northern Ireland. So out of the 20 years we've had a shared government, 7.5 years they've refused to sit together. So our institutions are flawed, and they're divided down political and religious grounds. So we still vote in what we call green and orange ways. But even thinking about justice, so for example, I shared my grandfather was shot dead for being a Catholic at the wrong place at the wrong time. And that was 50 years ago, just before I was born. And we're still waiting for justice. So through the legacy and recovery of truth, we're still waiting for the British government to say what they done was wrong. Now, they paid out compensation of, like, my grandmother got $500 compensation for her husband, who had 3 businesses life being taken, but we're still waiting for a sorry for the truth. And the institutions, like the many people, the thousands of people that have died, are still waiting for truth, where, you know, countries like South Africa have really led the way in terms of truth and recovery. As well, within Northern Ireland, our institutions, because Northern Ireland was established as a British Protestant state, lots of employment Catholics were excluded from universities, from employment opportunities, and even our police force, it was like 95% Protestant. So we've got positive discrimination built into some of our jobs, where we're encouraging people from one community to apply. So we're trying to get balance in terms of link to this goal 16. We're trying to have more fair, accountable institutions, but the reality of it is sometimes really it's difficult. Yeah, that's, I don't know if you want to add anything, Chibuzor, with that.
Yeah, so, that's a very important question. 2 things that stood out for me there is accountability and inclusivity. So sadly, I come from a part of the world where asking for accountability many times, especially from the government, is like being insufferable. It's like you are a pain in the back, and sometimes you're being seen as a very problematic individual. I never knew how deep-rooted that was in our system. I know our culture is a culture of, if someone did something really bad to you, let's say someone older than you, you would be advised, oh, just let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go. And like one of a famous author said, it's not just about peace, it's also about justice. It's not just about peace, it's also about justice. And so one of the things we teach about is restorative justice, to let people understand the importance of accountability, that if you have committed a wrong, or if you've harmed someone else, it is very, very important you hold yourself accountable and you seek ways to repair the harm. Yes, we know there is the criminal justice system that does its job, but also there is that place of letting people know and understand that, yes, I actually did something wrong and I need to do something to repair it. Yes, I may not be able to fix all of it. And to some persons, it seems very new to their ears, because they've been used to, when there is conflict, instead of finding a resolution, they are being told, just let it be, let it be. And that results into deep-seated trauma. And that's why in many of our projects, we usually have a component for trauma-informed leadership, to help guide people who are experiencing trauma as a result of conflict. And so, yes, teaching people about the importance of being accountable is one of the things we include in our in our projects, in our programs. And then inclusivity, which is very, very key. I'm really glad. There was something I said in my training today. I said, we would never have believed that a time would come that in the United States, someone would be vying for the office of the presidency as a woman and a woman of color. 20 years ago, that would be unthinkable. But you see, now the world has come to a point where equal opportunity is given to everyone. And I think for us to have a very progressive and peaceful society, that is something we need to champion for people of different demographics. People must, one of the things I teach is that it's important we create spaces for people that are different from us to chime in their ideas, to contribute to development and growth. And we see that inclusive institutions contribute meaningfully to the development of economies and communities. And so these two are very, very important. And it's something we take very important in our projects, and we hope to build upon that in future projects.
I would maybe like to add as well, like maybe as well, even a critical perspective on the Sustainable Development Goal 16. In Europe, like we've had the conflict in Ukraine and Russia, where a lot of the European states have provided schemes and incentives for bringing Ukrainians into the country, and paying families to accommodate them. But the same schemes don't apply if you're from Sudan, Somalia, Gaza. And there's something about, with the UN or establishing these goals, like what does it really look like on paper? And is there an institutional bias? Like, do we really mean, we want people like us? So I do think, as I agree, that concept of inclusivity, or like a true kind of inclusivity, involves everybody. And even back to that principle of Ubuntu and the common good, we just can't have this for one section of the community or one nation. So I do think our strategies that we do with young people need to be inclusive. And for me, in Northern Ireland, we're the second widest part of Europe. Iceland is the widest part of Europe. I think people of different color don't come to Ireland because it's so cold and wet. So but we're still learning about diversity. But in my strategies, I'm doing an injustice, because if I believe in Ubuntu, the world isn't white people. And the world isn't the Northern Hemisphere or the Western world. So I think there's a real challenge when we're thinking about this goal, to think on a global scale. And that's important. And Chibuzor, I partnered with an organization in Africa called Young Africa, and we done work in Zimbabwe and Mozambique and Zambia. And I was laughing when you were talking about accountability and institutions. When I was going through Zimbabwe, we were bringing balloons and toys for the orphanage, and we were told by customs we had to pay a balloon tax because we brought too many balloons in. But how do you challenge a system sometimes is really difficult, like especially if they're in a position of power. And for our young people who experience injustice, you're trying to give them the skills, but it's not easy sometimes when you encounter them injustices or the lack of accountability from government.
This will probably be our last question, but it is from Luna. How do cultural and social differences influence peace-building efforts among youth? And what strategies do you find most effective in navigating these challenges?
That's a very, very important question. Cultural differences. One of the things, let me bring up an example. For example, the US exchange programs. I must commend the US government for coming up with that, where people from different cultures are able to come to the United States and learn from other people. There is something really special about being open to learning the perspective of other cultures, of other people. in a way, I don't know how to describe it. It humbles us, and it makes us realize that our perspective to life, because sometimes we think the way we see life is all there is. But then we get to discover that the beauty of life is an eclectic perspective, an eclectic ensemble of different perspectives is what brings out the beauty. And so when I'm able to see things from this other person's perspective, learn from this culture, learn from this individual, even when I'm willing to be open to, for example, I'm here in Namibia and I'm listening to the people and asking them how they are able to resolve conflicts as from their cultural perspective. Getting to hear from them, it has been a very enriching experience for me. And so opportunities like this, where we get to hear from people from different locations, broadens our perspective, and then also equips us with more tools to solve some of the local problems we have. Because I believe that our immediate community is a microcosm of the global society, and so if we're able to merge or blend all of these ideas, we're able to solve some of the complex problems in our local communities. And so cultural exchanges are very key. They're very, very, very important. Very, very essential. Yeah.
Okay. In the video clip, some of the young people were talking and they were highlighting issues that affect everybody, you know, mental health, you know, unemployment, you know, your future. I think things like that are what young people can agree on. But I think when we talk about conflict and peace, sometimes people can feel like they've nothing to say, or like my grandfather wasn't killed from it or something. They feel like they've nothing to contribute to conflict. And you know, Chibuzor started off in his presentation talking about inner conflict and the different types of conflict that lead to the workplace. And I think with young people, the starting point is looking at conflict at the basic level, whether it's people struggling with their identity, their sexuality, does God exist? Should I forgive my brother for doing that to me? We have to start with the normality of conflict, the everydayness of conflict, the realness of conflict, but also to explore how it does expand, how it can damage families, communities, nations, and the world. And I find more and more in my work with different cultural young people from different cultural or social backgrounds, they are agreeing on things like mental health. I think there's an epidemic at the minute of young people struggling with anxiety. I think we're seeing young people maybe talking a bit more about climate change or fear about their future. And that's the common conversation. So the strategies for us are listening and allowing to create spaces for dialogue. So I'm conscious of time, but like I do agree with everything that's been said. But we need collaborators in building peace. Like we need everyone in every nation to kind of try to be a peace builder. And today is really encouraging for that.
Those are really nice words to end on, and really important sentiments. I think you have demonstrated for us, Chibuzor and Joe, just how different the areas are that you're working in, but look at all the similarities there are in what we're working with. It sounds cliche, but I think whenever we get together and talk openly like this, we find that there's more that binds us than separates us. That couldn't be more clear. I was drawn to you know, you mentioning, Joe, the small efforts that we can make. There's an educator who talks about small is all. Just those tiny things you can do are so important. I also really appreciated thinking about youth not being necessarily just the future, they're the present. And I think that's something we can bring into our ways of operating within the Global Youth Advancement Network here. Chibuzor, so many ideas that you have talked about are really important for us, and especially this kind of compassionate listening, I think, is one of the big ones. Just getting to those basic levels where we can listen to people who might have something a little bit different to say. And that could be a first step towards peace. Amy, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I saw you came on camera. You have been working with this for a long time. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I just, grateful for taking the time today, and it's important reminders that it's all of us. We all need to do it, and you're great examples and motivators for us to continue to do what we can where we can. And so thank you.
So we hope to stay in touch with you, Chibuzor and Joe. You're welcome to join our interest group if you would like, and everyone who is here today. Thank you again for being here, and thank you for helping us celebrate the International Day of Peace. You've given us a lot to think about, and I for one am feeling like a lot of heavy things have happened, but I feel uplifted in knowing that we can take some action. So hope everyone enjoys the rest of the day and the weekend. Thanks again.